everybody, welcome. I'm so happy that you are joining me today. This is going to be a great session. We are going to be myofascia releasing our feet, and we're going to do that in a couple of different ways. So I'm going to go over a little bit of equipment that you might want to gather and have around you. So one thing you're going to want is a type of ball, perhaps, that you could roll your feet on. Now, if you don't have this, I am going to go over some techniques that you can do without using the balls. So don't feel like you have to have the balls, but this is one of the pieces of equipment that we'll be using. This is just my favorite brand. There are many, many different brands of massage balls out there. And you could also use a tennis ball or a lacrosse ball. It's definitely better than nothing, right? You're going to get some of that release. The thing is, a tennis ball was created to play tennis. A lacrosse ball was created to play lacrosse. Massage balls were created to use for massaging. So I like to use the role model method. Jill Miller, that's who I did all my training through. But there are many, many other brands out there. If you just go to even something like Amazon, do a search, you're going to find many, many brands. So feel free to use whatever brand works for you. The other thing that we're going to use today on our feet is what's called a gua sha tool. Again, you can find these everywhere. Brand does not matter. A great substitute for this gua sha tool is a wrench, right? A little wrench you'd find at your local hardware store. I usually, if I use a wrench, I get a smaller one. It's just easier to hold, easier to handle. That also works really, really well. Now, when we get to the gua sha, you might want to have some lotion or some oil around, because it is really nice to kind of put a little massaging oil or lotion of sorts on the area when you gua sha, and we'll talk about that a little more when we get there. So the other thing that we're going to do this session, besides kind of massaging our feet, is some stretching. So I like to start with a little bit of stretching and then end with some stretching. You don't have to do things in this order, right? All of these techniques are going to be fabulous. You don't have to go start to finish, right? You can intertwine and use, mix and match these techniques. But I like to start with the stretch and end with the stretch, because it's a nice way to notice and feel the difference in what these tools and what this act of massage, self-massage, does for the body. So we're going to start with a little bit lighter stretching, because maybe, our feet are basically a little bit tight now. We haven't done anything to it. But a good place to start to warm up the feet is to come on over. We'll start on our hands and knees, but we're going to push in to downward facing dog. Now, you might have a pillow or a blanket or some bolsters and yoga blocks, just some typical yoga equipment. A strap can also come in handy as we're doing our stretching. But from our all fours, we'll take our toes, curl them under. I like to push back onto my heels a little bit here. You can feel the stretch through your feet. Now, for some people, this is not a problem at all. For some of you, you'll feel that tightness already. And then from here, we're going to just press our hands into our ground. Come on up, finding your downward facing dog. And then just start to pedal your feet out a little bit. So just noticing, how your feet feel as you're pushing up through your toes. And then maybe letting one heel come down, roll up onto the opposite toes, and just get a little side to side movement. Again, just being mindful, being aware of how the foot feels. And then we'll switch that out. So I call this a check, right? We're going to check to see how our body feels, and then at the end, we will recheck. Right? And so even in this check, we're just loosening things up a bit. Nice. And then from here, we'll just go ahead and come on back down and into any type of seated position that you like. So just kind of thinking about, how did my feet feel? How did my toes feel? How did the base of my foot feel? If you do have some plantar fasciitis, or you have some heel pain, any of those things, right? You might have really felt that here. So I'm going to give you some techniques now that are going to help loosen that up. Now, myofascia techniques are great to do anytime. They can be preventative, right? We use them to prevent pain. We can use them after a workout to help prevent so much soreness. I won't say, you do a really hard workout, you do some myofascial release, you may still be a little bit sore, but it's going to help that. So we're going to start with just one ball. So if you do have more than one in the bag, just take out one ball and we're going to stand up. Now, feel free to grab yourself a chair, a wall, anything to hold on for your balance. And we're just going to place that ball on the floor. You could also sit in a chair. And we're going to bring one foot, you choose which, onto that ball. And we're just going to start to roll lightly. You don't have to push in really hard at this point, especially if your feet are tender, right? Just stay light with it. Now, one thing I love about this little life hack, right? Maybe you have a job where you're at a desk. Keep a set of these balls in your desk drawer. You can roll your feet underneath your desk anytime during the day. So you could be sitting in your chair rolling your feet. Now, as you start to roll, right, using your judgment, maybe you want to start to push a little more pressure into it. And that ball's going to run away from you sometimes. No worries. We just go back and get it. And so just play around with the intensity. And I'm just going back and forth. I'm doing more of my pressure from the ball of my foot pressing into the heel, just because that's what works best for me balance-wise. But you can go, any direction here. So we're rolling with kind of the fibers of our muscle, our tendons, our ligaments, our fascia. We have 26 bones in our feet and 30 joints, making up, consisting of more than like 100 muscles, tendons, ligaments combined. There is a lot of stuff in our feet. So I tend to spend a little more time on the feet than maybe on any other area of the body. Now, once I start to feel that foot warming up, and as I'm rolling across it, I'm feeling some areas that are a little more tender. So I want to start tuning into those areas more. So for me, right here in the center of my arch, it's a little more tender. So I'm going to push and hold right into that area. Maybe 10, 20, 30 seconds even. I can back off and I can repeat. I can do that a few times. The other thing I can do is I can start to push in and then twist my foot side to side. So one of the things I love about this brand of ball that I use is the surface of it. It has kind of a rubbery, sticky type surface. So that as I start this twisty action, the ball is kind of connecting to those outer layers of fascia. And it's really working those outer layers on each other. It's juicing them up. Remember how we talked about like the juicing of a lemon or an orange to get it, we massage it on the cabinet to get it to really release its juice, right? So the same kind of concept here is we want fluid flowing into all of those fascial layers. And so when we don't move, when we don't use the layers, they get dried up, or when they get injured and we get some scar tissue that built up in there. So this act of moving and massaging is bringing that fluidity in, because we're loosening up those clogged up, tight places where the fluid hasn't been able to get in and out. Nice. And then you can just kind of move that ball around into a couple of areas. I like to come kind of inside my arch, and then the outside of my arch. Nice. So the balls are a great place to really warm up the feet. And it may be all you do, right? Might be plenty to just roll the balls. I'm going to show you several different techniques today. So rules of thumb, right? If you have the time, we're going to spend maybe 10-ish minutes per kind of area of our body. So you could roll one foot for 10 minutes. I'm not, for the purposes of this video, going to roll for 10 minutes because we are going to do some other activities with our foot as well, some other methods. But 10, 15 minutes per area, plenty. You don't want to overdo, right? You want to give it time to then rest and recover. So with that being said, we're going to switch to the other foot, but I want you to do something for me first. I want you to come off the ball, and I want you just to stand on both feet for 10 seconds. Feel the difference, even in just that few minutes of rolling one foot, feel the difference in how the other foot feels. Yeah, it's good, isn't it? And so then we'll switch over to the other foot. Now, just a couple of things that you'll hear me say over and over again because it's very important. If you're in doubt, right? If you're rolling and you're like, oh, that just doesn't feel good, right? I have an injury and that does not feel good to me. Get it checked out by your medical doctor, right? So rolling myofascial release is generally recognized as safe for most of the population, but there are times that we should not roll. If you are in an active injury, an active break, you don't want to roll right then, right? You're going to start bringing that in the recovery period. If you have maybe, say, type 1 diabetes, right, you want to check with your doctor. Any type of circulation or neurological issues that you might be facing in your body, always check with your doctor. Rolling may be perfectly safe for you, but you always want to check it out. So I like to just say, if in doubt, get it checked out, right? Go to your doctor, the doctor that you work with, and discuss it with them. All right, so we'll take a few minutes on this foot. Same thing. We're just starting back and forth, loosening up. You might notice one foot feels a little tighter than the other. So what I like to say in that situation, if one side of your body's a little tighter, roll it, massage it, gua sha it a little bit longer. Give it that extra attention. Don't ignore the other side, right? But give the area that needs it, give it a little more. So same here, after you roll back and forth for a while, maybe you start kind of that smashing, right? Just pushing in and holding. Hold on that tight spot. A lot of times you will actually feel the release happen. That happens for me a lot when I roll my shoulders. I will feel a hold on that trigger point, and I will feel that trigger point give, and it is amazing. But one way to know if you don't feel like a drastic release, judge kind of the sensation that you feel. I don't like to use the word pain because I don't want you to have something going on that you say, ooh, that is painful, right? I can't breathe, I can't talk, it's making me angry. Then back off, right? Roll a little lighter, maybe sit down, maybe do a different method, right? So I don't want you to describe things as painful, but thinking of the sensation that you feel. So when I'm pressing into kind of this trigger point for me, this area of tightness, I feel sensation. As I hold on it, that sensation starts to lessen, even just by a little bit, right? We're not gonna change our body overnight. This is a thing that we want to continue to do. Just like we can't exercise once a year, right? We do it daily, we do it weekly. Same with rolling. It is a progressive thing, right? But I feel that pain, sensation, right? Better word, backing off. That's some of that release happening. All right, and then maybe I start to roll a little more. Maybe I start that twisty action. I really like the twisty action. So all in all, we're going to probably spend about 15 minutes per foot when it's all said and done. Again, remember you can use any pieces of this. So maybe you have 5 minutes, right? You're like, I'm just going to roll my feet for 5 minutes. It's incremental, right? So 5 minutes today and 5 minutes 3 days from now, right? That all adds up. I like to aim for, 30 minutes a week, maybe. So maybe I split it into 10-minute sections. Maybe I do my feet one day, my shoulders one day. Find what works for you. I really love this because if you look down at your feet, you can just see the metatarsal bones, right? You can see them spreading out. My toes are spreading. It just feels really good. And then again, if you want to come off the ball, feel how light and awesome those feet feel. All right, so we're going to go ahead and come down, and we're going to play with a couple of other methods here. So you can set your balls over to the side, and we're actually going to use our hands. Right? We have our hands with us all the time, and our hands are a wonderful tool to help with self-myofascial release, right? Or I'm kind of being redundant there. Myofascial release, releasing the tension yourself. So choose a foot. It doesn't matter which feet. Again, you could use some lotion or some oil to make this feel a little bit better, a little bit soother, and whose feet don't need a little bit more lotion or oil on them. I like to use coconut oil, just pure coconut oil. But we're going to choose one of our feet. Thumbs are great. You just use your thumbs. Start massaging into your feet. Now, this is going to be a little bit deeper tissue than the balls because the ball is bigger. It covers a bigger area. It doesn't dig in quite so intensely. So now I can really kind of pinpoint my tighter area. So many of us have some trigger points right along our plantar fascia. And so as you're massaging around on that, when you feel those areas that are a little tender, I like to take one thumb on top of the other. My hands come over the top of my foot to brace it. And again, just press in and hold. Maybe a little bit of jiggle of the fingers to kind of loosen that up. Right? And then I can move to another area. And I can really use my fingers to work all around the foot. So there's not truly like a right or wrong here. It's more of, what feels good to you. So things I look for, I said this a little bit earlier, but I want to kind of re-emphasize it. If I come into a particular spot, let's say right here, for example, right? I'm just kind of between my pinky and my one toe over. I'm a little bit down and I'm like, that kind of takes my breath away. That is a little bit more sensation than I want to feel. Then I'm just going to move a little bit over, right? Or I can back off on the pressure. Right? This is not about bringing tears to your eyes. It's not about causing your body to bruise. Occasionally there will be a little light bruising, and that's okay occasionally. But we're not trying to see how much pain we can take here. We are trying to loosen up the fascia. Because when we loosen it up, right, we make the circulatory system, it's able to get in and out of our body more. Remember the water hose, right? If we've got water running through a water hose and I take that water hose and I clamp it shut, right, that water's not going to flow through very well. If I've got tight, clamped up fascia, my blood supply is not going to flow through very well. Nutrients aren't going to get delivered very well. The lymphatic system's not going to be able to pull the waste out very well, right? So my purpose is to get things more movable so that the nutrients can come in and the waste can come out. Now, as you're massaging your feet, you can even kind of get between those long bones, those metatarsals, up into the ball of the foot, right? And you just play around with what your body needs the most. I like to come into the toes, right? So maybe taking each toe singularly, massaging it out, up and down each toe. Right? Just a few seconds on each toe. Feel the warmth coming. Maybe get in between each toe, into the toe bed. Now I could do one at a time. I'm using the pad of my finger here. Or I like to sometimes take the 4 pads of my finger, press them into the toe bed. Now this can be pretty sensitive, especially if you wear shoes often and your feet don't get a lot of chance for your toes to just spread out. This may be too much. Don't go here if it's too much. But I can then kind of massage the pads of my finger all in between the toes. I can also just kind of take my hands in general, right? And just massage top and bottom of my foot and into my ankles a little bit. Don't forget the ankles. I can really work back here around my heel, the base of my Achilles tendon coming down. Right? Just giving it some love. The heat, the color is coming to our foot. Right? You do this, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever time I have. And then before we go to the other foot, Maybe take a look at them, right? One looks a lot more colorful. And then oftentimes when I go to switch feet, the foot I'm switching to, it feels colder, right? Because that blood supply is not coming to it. So I want to switch. I want to get into my other foot. Same. We'll start with just the massaging of the bottom of the foot using our fingers. Now remember, these are all just different techniques. You know, you might prefer to just use the balls. You might prefer to just use your hands. You might prefer to use a gua sha method, which I'm going to show you in a minute. So in a wonderful, perfect world scenario, right, we could do all of these, and we could give ourselves a 30-minute or so foot massage every single day. But we know that we don't always have time for that. So even just a couple of minutes when you get into bed at night, what a great way, instead of getting on your phone, right? I know I'm guilty, grab my phone, check social media. Instead of doing that, give myself a little foot massage. Use oil, put on some socks, go to bed. Great, awesome, awesome, awesome self-care for our feet. So we'll just spend a couple of minutes massaging this foot as well. Again, oil can make this even nicer, because then the friction of the hand on the foot just glides more. Getting in between the metatarsals. I like to come up to kind of the ball of the foot and really try to work between the bones. So by working into this tissue, right, we bring the good stuff in, we help the bad stuff get out. The spreading of the foot that we're doing here, you know, it's gonna help prevent things like bunions. It's gonna help prevent plantar fascia, heel spurs, you know, all of those different feet injuries that we can get. So it can help them feel better, but it can also help prevent it from happening. And what we do in our feet is affecting different areas of our body. So just by giving yourself a foot massage, you're releasing tension up in your shoulders. Because if you think of like a knit sweater, right? If you started to pull a piece of yarn in the left arm of that knit sweater, right, is it only going to affect that one little spot? No, because that yarn is woven through the entire sweater, and our fascia is woven through our entire body. Get into the toes, massage up and down the toes. So what we do to one area, good or bad, affects all the other areas of our body. We have little trigger point areas when we have, that's where that tightness tends to kind of lodge itself, but it affects pain in many, many different areas of the body. So by loosening one, we lessen pain in other areas. And then again, you could get into the toe bed, maybe take your fingers down into the toe bed, really massaging around. And then just kind of using your whole hand. It's like you're kneading pizza dough, right? Just moving. And that's kind of a good analogy too, right? If you're rolling out dough, and when you first start rolling out, you get some lumps in there, right? And we work to roll the lumps out. We're doing some of that same here. We didn't do this on the other foot, so we'll come back and do it. But another nice thing to do is then hold your heel, and with the opposite hand, get a little twisting, turning the foot side to side. So this does a great job of loosening up between the bigger cubed kind of cuneiform bones that are higher up in the foot. We'll get that other foot in just a moment because I don't want to leave it out. And then, you know, getting up around the ankle. Now you can use the balls to roll the ankle as well. And I will show you that, but I really just kind of like using my hands best on the ankle. But I will show you the balls in just a moment so you can see some of that. But I feel like I get a better job with my hands and with more of a gua sha tool. Let's twist our other foot because I left that out. Sometimes you get a little popping in there, a little self-adjustment. We don't want to force anything. We're not trying to force that popping, cracking motion to happen. but sometimes you'll get some light. So already your feet are probably feeling fabulous, and we still have a couple of more minutes of awesomeness that we are going to bring to these feet. Now, if you did want to use the ball on the ankle, again, you can take a small ball and placing kind of the flatter part of the outside foot onto the ball. You can get some rolling and I do like to kind of do a little smashing here. So I just kind of hold the ball in place and apply some pressure from the top. But again, you have to have a little bit of flexibility to get down into this position. So a lot of times I find it just more beneficial to use my hands. But it does feel kind of nice. And I can do the other side as well, right? But I gotta play with some of my body positioning here to get into those areas. I always tell people experiment a little bit, right? If it doesn't feel good, don't do it. But don't be so rigid and think, oh, she didn't say to roll this way, I better not do it. Right? Give it a try, because you might find a way that this works really well for you. And you could, of course, do both feet using the ball. But we're going to go on to kind of our last method here before we do our recheck. And that's where I like to use the gua sha tool, or like I said, a little wrench, a small wrench from the hardware store works great. Again, lotion oil is going to make this feel really better. Now, you also don't have to go in this order. You could start with the gua sha, right? Any order you want. But what we're going to do, this is more of a scraping action. It's going to work more into those surface layers. So a lot of times people start with the gua sha and then move deeper. Also, what I like about the gua sha is it works around the more bony areas. So we're going to get into the ankle a bit where it's bonier. But taking your gua sha, I like to flex my foot. So I like to pull it back a little bit to really expose the plantar fascia. And then we're just going to take it and we're scraping, right? So I promise this does feel even better with oil. I didn't want to get the floor all oily for the video, but works great with oil. Feels even better. And I can go back and forth. I can go in little strokes. I can go in bigger strokes. I'm just loosening up all of those outer layers. I can get down on the heel. I can get up on the ball of the foot, the side of the foot. Remember, it's bonier here, but I still have all of those surface layers of fascia. The top of the foot. Again, bonier, but it works great on the top. Now, sometimes we have some nerves running through our body, so if you get that little nerve tingling feel, again, just move off of it. We don't want to agitate the nerves. At the outside of the foot. You can spend time on this. You don't have to go as quickly as I am. And then I really love to get up around the ankle, because again, it's bonier there. But how many of us have sprained our ankle? Right? We get a lot of tissue built up. I can come kind of over the top of the ankle. Now we're going to go into calves and shins, right, in a bit. We're just focusing on our ankles and our feet here. But when you're doing this on your own, right, you can combine in any way, any form that you like. Now, as you're doing this scraping, sometimes you're going to feel, I call it crunchiness. It just feels like crunchiness. Right? That's some of that scar tissue, that crunched up tight area is what's making that crunchy sound. So we talked about the circulation, right? Moving through our body. So an important piece to take into this is fluid, right? We have to be putting fluid into our body. Healthy fluids, water. Right? Water is one of the best things that we can put into our body. The other thing are good, healthy oils, right? Good, healthy fats, because that is going to lubricate our body from the inside out. And then same thing, just kind of switching over to the other foot. You know, there's not a solid rule here. Just working around where it feels good to me. If it doesn't feel good, and I use the word pain and the word feel good kind of lightly, right? Because there's going to be times when you're like, I don't know if I would say this feels good, right? But it's a hurt so good in that we feel the good coming out of it, right? We feel the loosening happening. It is not intense to where we're like, oh, I gotta hold my breath. I can't breathe, right? That's not what we want to feel. And then again, just giving a little attention, down around the ankles. Now, if I were in the recovery phase with my doctor's approval of a sprained ankle or maybe a plantar fascia flare, right, I could concentrate my efforts in those areas. I'm doing more of a maintenance, right? Just a full once over. This might be something I try to do once a week, right? 30 minutes set aside on a day I have off, or just have an evening off, and just give my feet some love. Nice. All right. Now here's time for the magic of all of that. We're going to do a little retest. Now, this may be the first time you've ever rolled your feet, right? You're not going to perfect every bit of tightness in your body in one time, right? It's a continual time. But even after one session, you're going to feel some of that looseness. So let's do some of the stretches we started with, and actually a little bit deeper stretching, because I bet you can go a little bit deeper here. So coming over onto all fours, remember you could bring a blanket underneath your knees here if this is painful at all. We'll take our toes, we'll curl them under. We'll set back towards our heels. Now we got just into the feet. When we get into the calves and the shins and you combine all this together, you're gonna feel even bigger differences, right? But even right here, my feet, they feel longer, they feel more released. If I come up into my downward facing dog, right, maybe I bring one foot to the ground and I rise up onto the toes of the other and rocking around. Definitely feels a little looser. Right, switch that out, try the other side. And then maybe coming back down onto your knees, keeping the toes curled under again. Please feel free to be on a blanket. And as I set my glutes back to my heels, right, where we were a moment ago, maybe I can even come all the way up here, applying more of my upper body weight onto my heels. Now, this may still be too much, so only go where it feels okay to you. But I affectionately like to call this angry toe pose. It is a variation of thunderbolt pose. But with my toes curled under, I'm really getting a nice stretch down the bottoms of my feet. And whereas I might not be able to do this before I roll, I can now. And then I like to just play with a few other stretches because they feel really good to the ankles. And stretching is another awesome way to kind of help with the myofascial release. So yin. So think of a cotton ball, right? And if you took that cotton ball and you just yanked it, it's going to break apart. But if you took the cotton ball and you pulled on it a little bit, you can create a new shape and it will hold that new shape. And so that's kind of the concept of then holding the stretches, right? We're stretching just a little bit, we're holding them, and we're bringing our body into a new normal over time. So from here, I like to rock back towards my heels, keeping my knees forward. Now again, sensitive knees, don't do this pose where you don't have to. I'm going to show you how you can do it standing in a moment. But as I drop my heels to the ground, I'm getting all that nice stretchiness around the ankles. You're going to feel that up into your shins as well. Now I could do this standing also. So I could step one foot forward, my foot behind me. I'm going to let my knee come forward. My heel may lift a little bit, but I'm bringing that heel towards the ground. So I'm just stretching into the ankle. So great follow-up stretches for the feet, the ankles. You could switch, do both feet. One last stretch for you. We're gonna come down into hero pose. Now, again, you could be on a blanket. You could have a bolster or a yoga block between you for support. And you can maybe just right here, this may be as far as you go, it is stretching through the top of the foot and the top of the ankle. Now, if I wanted more, with or without my bolster, I can start to lean back. I can press the top of my foot into the ground and lift my shin. That's going to deepen my stretch. It's going to be a little less on the bolster, a little more if I'm not on a bolster or a block. Now I can do one leg. I can switch. I'd say aim to hold these stretches at least 30 seconds, right? There is no reason you can't hold them longer if you choose, but try for at least 30. Right, and switch to the other side. The other option, depending on your ankle flexibility, is you could lift both shins up. Now this is going to be a deep, deep stretch through the top of the foot, the front of the ankle. You only go here if it feels okay to you. And then when I'm finally finished stretching, I like to just take my feet, roll them out. The first few seconds, it's kind of like, ooh, that's a little bit intense. But then it starts to feel really good. And then maybe just take a forward fold, because that just feels good after all the setting in the positions that we were in to massage our feet. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope you found that beneficial and enjoyable. Thank you again.